everybody. I'm Juliette Juarez reporting for Que Onda Magazine with an exclusive interview with Mr. Ivan Sanchez, president of the Houston Millennials chapter here in Houston. He is not only the president and chairman, but he is also a commercial lender for Gold Quest, a political scientist, and tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Well, thank you so very much, Juliette, and Que Onda. Shout out to Mr. Parza for giving us this opportunity too. As you said, Ivan Sanchez, I am the president of Houston Millennials. I am the chairman of United States Millennials Corporation, commercial lender for Gold Quest, an investor for Sandmore. I'm a political scientist. I'm also ran previously for United States Congress with more political ganas para salir adelante. Thank you so much for doing this.
Let's talk about your organization. So
Sure.
When did you come up with the idea of Houston Millennials?
So that's a very interesting question because I went to University of Houston downtown. I became the student body president, and I quickly realized when I started going out networking that no one would give me a time or date to shake even my hand right. People would shake my hand like this. They would see a young face immediately and just write it off wherever I went. Then I had a very respected job in the United States Congress under the leadership of Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee in the 18th Congressional District. And even though now I had the economic support, I had a job that was very well respected, no matter where I went, I was still feeling pushed aside. I'm 35 years old right now, which I know I look 25, but when I was 25, when I found the organization, I looked like a quinceañera. And so that feeling was really getting to me, and there was this stigma around Google and around the older generations that were lazy and entitled. And the beautiful thing is that when I worked in the United States Congress, I was in rooms that no young Latino was supposed to be in. But I was so fortunate to meet so many other badass young professionals. They weren't lazy and entitled like myself, and we all felt the same way. So one night, I go network on December of 2014. I go network to 3 specific events, and I counted 32 hands that shook my hand como con pena, como si fuera asco or whatever it is. And they weren't even looking at me in the eye. So when I went home that night at like 2, 3 in the morning, I was really actually upset. I was pissed off that, hey, I demand the respect. I'm a congressional liaison. I'm an immigration liaison. The best attorneys in the city of Houston are chasing me to lobby for me or whatnot, or to lobby me. And so I found the Houston Millennials group page, and the description was said, add 7 young professionals to have a respected group. And so the next day, I woke up to 700 members in there. And a week later, 1,200 people in there. And I'm like, oh my God, this is growing out. It just came out of frustration to get a respected name. What we lack in experience, we make up in drive and ideas. We're a forward-thinking generation. We're not about tolerance, we're about acceptance. And so one day I was just like, within 4 hours, I was just like, hey, y'all, if anybody wants to meet at Agora, Cafe Agora in Montrose, let's meet up and see what we can do. And about 36 people showed up that day, including a couple of lawyers, young lawyers, a priest, an imam, another student body president. And all these people were actually frustrated that they kept calling us lazy and entitled in the mainstream, yet we had so many awesome young professionals in that table. So we just said, well, let's start networking. Let's start networking with one another. We are the next generation. Back then, the stigma, the purpose was to combat the stigma. No longer are we catering to another generation no, that's not who we are. Now, we're about putting ourselves into the positions of power in the public, private, and nonprofit sector, because we are not the future. We are the now. We are the biggest economic generation in the entire world right now, and the biggest voting bloc. So we don't need permission from anybody else or permiso de nadie decirnos who we are as a generation. So now it's blowing up, and You're a member of it, and we're very proud to grow so very fast.
Wow, so you started with 70.
Yes.
70 members on your group, and now you have 8.9 thousand on your Houston Millennials group page.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
What does leadership mean to you, and how many people come out to your networking events or any of your events?
Well, leadership, I think, in its in its core definition, I think, is the ability to influence. As a graduate from 9 leadership institutes, most notably Leadership Houston, Class 39, I think is the ability to get people to do or to see your vision, to inspire them, to inspire a group, a person, or an organization to fulfill and work and take action on an item that cannot be done by one person. So for whatever that is, the gigantic job fairs that we have, or our 1,200 people networking events that we host, it can't be done by just myself. But given the layout of the vision of the organization, that we're going to start shaking our hands and get to know one another, and we are all getting out of the comfort zone at the same time, because we all want to make money, we all want to have social status, and giving that mission, a lot of people like yourself, your sister, our leadership, our committees, see that vision at the end of the tunnel of like, okay, I can't do this just solo. So how about we come in a group where we can all gather and actually make that mission and vision of Houston Millennials, which is, again, putting millennials, advancing millennials into positions of power. So how do you do that, right? And it seems like a big old apple that is hard to bite. How do you promote, how do you advance a generation into positions of power, right? And that's why we do it through now the 8,900 members that we have, the 36 annual awesome events that we put. But the most important part is breaking the apple down, slicing it into 7 different little quadrants so you can actually eat it. And those 7 quadrants are the 7 committees: the business committee, the politics committee, community service, the women's committee, the networking committee, and the executive council that we have. So each one with their own tasks. We lay down the mission and vision that is greater than us, but we all can see it. And when we slice it into smaller parts, as you've seen, that if our committees are walking, and the business committee is doing business plans and job fairs and inspiring us through the millennial or millionaire of means, and the politics committee is running people for office and getting people elected and registering to vote, and the health and fitness is actually getting us active, all these different things, we're actually moving our entire generation forward. So it is an interesting question that you mix within leadership and Houston Millennials, and it's about laying down that vision that I can't do myself, you can't do yourself. But now with our group, with our 200 plus committee members and our 8,900 general members, now we can see that, and I'm so very honored that you've joined the team also. But to all the millennials out there, just know that you also have your headquarters. You can come by at any time, because this is what Houston Millennials is about.
And for the millennials out there, what's the next thing you got going on in your organization?
So for this entire quarter has been really special because we're moving very fast. From the Community Service Committee hosting Roses for Janitors, we bought about 2,500 roses for Valentine's Day, and we gave it to the janitors across Houston. From the business committee to having those job fairs where, you know, it was so beautiful to see that we actually hosted the job fair and see so many young people come in suit and tie, which was an amazing thing to see. To the politics committee doing Millennials for Office 102, running people for office, to the networking committee having their Millennials After Dark professional networking, which get jam-packed. And it's just not like the old school where we used to say just networking and just a bunch of people in sweaty old suits or whatnot. It's actually cool. There is no dress code. We want the Mark Zuckerbergs to come out. We want the people to be themselves, but professionally as well. You always see me in a suit and tie. But what's up next for Houston Millennials on June 30th of 2022? We're going to have this special edition of our networking, which is called After Dark with the Arts. Ooh. It's professional networking plus an arts expo. So we want to showcase all the millennial talent. Graffiti artists, magicians. There's 2 fashion shows. There's gonna be a snake handlers and monkeys in our event. But we're trying to make it cool so these people that actually find networking intimidating, because I'm an extrovert, I'm okay with it. I still get nervous coming up to people. I can barely only imagine what introverts go through, but we're trying to make it cool. We're trying to make it relaxing while still in the same mission to get out of our comfort zones and meet one another, because again, we're the now and we need to connect each other with ourselves. Yes, social media is extremely important, but there's nothing more important than actually being here and talking to you eye to eye and building that relationship, right? So it's June 30th, After Dark with the Arts, Professional Networking Arts Expo from 6 to 9 at the ballroom. The Bayou, what is it called? The ballroom at the Bayou.
Yeah, at the ballroom at the Bayou. Where can the audience find your tickets?
We can always go to HoustonMillennials.com, where you can see our membership, where you can see the ticket prices. You can also become an artist if you're an artist from anything in the STEAM industry, from scientists to people in TV, models or whatnot. You're an artist, you want to showcase your art, you can go to HoustonMillennials.com, see all the tickets. And yeah, so that's where you can get your tickets.
So what positive impacts do you have going on, like, in the near future?
So I'm a person that leads by example, and something that people, mi mamá siempre decía, tú eres berraco, tú eres tenaz. And my mother passed away when I was a nightclub promoter. I was living in a boys in the hood environment at that time, and seeing my mother holding the dead weight of her head when she passed away right in front of me was a very impactful, the most bittersweet part of my life. Because I almost went cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs when that happened. But I unconsciously said to myself that I at least want to be half of the person my mother was. An attorney in Colombia, flew her 3 kids to the United States when her office was blown up. Obviously, she was putting very, very bad people behind bars. Until a fax came to her office, said, next time you put the kids in the school bus, they're not coming back. What does a lioness do when her cubs are in danger? Absolutely anything. She brought us to this country y salió pa adelante. A single mother wouldn't even get a job in Pizza Hut because she didn't know English and she was overqualified. But she became an attorney here. She wrote 3 books. She became the president of the Colombian Chamber of Commerce. She sat in the board of HAR. And all these many, many, many other accomplishments. And then when I was a nightclub promoter, con el pelo parado, earrings, just like our regular youth would be. And when she passed, my life changed, and my mission to make her proud. That was my first impactful experience that changed everything. So I promised my mother that I was going to be an attorney like her. I am not an attorney, but in the process of going to or dreaming about law school, I claimed political science as my major, my bachelor's, and it was like taking a cold shower. Thinking that my mother brought the Sanchez Cubs to the country that markets itself as freedom, liberty, and justice for all, and going through his public education blindfolded, and then becoming a major in political science, and understanding and learning about private prisons, learning about where that at that time we're 46, Latinos are 46% of population, but we're only 4.33% of the local elected officials. That we're less than 2% of the business leaders, and then there were less than 1% of the nonprofit leaders. It was like taking a cold shower. And that's when my second passion arose. I was like, seriously, this is really happening in our own backyard? So it's just another one of those flemas, like lava was going through my veins, that it didn't matter what people thought it was cool. From a nightclub promoter turned into a political science was a big jump. Then becoming student body president, it's like, okay, let's not count the days, let's make the days count. How do I get other young Latinos to vote, but I put myself in their own shoes? I am a young Latino. So do I just say it's the right thing to do? Vamos a votar? No one wants to listen to that in our age and younger now. Mm-hmm. So what I did is mix cool, what I knew from club life, and I brought a couple of rappers, a couple of politicians, and we had this huge concert that was Walk to Vote. I didn't even know how to publicly speak back then. I stuttered and I sounded like Benito Mussolini, but we marched with 2,000 people at the same time to vote, and there's lights, camera, action. And that is when Congresswoman Jackson Lee called me, and I thought it was a prank call. Yes, is this Mr. Sanchez? I'm like, oh my goodness, yes, who is this? This is Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee. I want you to work for me. That was a prank call. I hung up on her. Her chief of staff calls me, and sure enough, me working in Congress?
Wow.
You can ask my ex-girlfriend. I don't have a lot of ex-girlfriends. It just happens to be an ex-girlfriend where she saw me crying for 2-3 days. I could not believe that a little Mexicanito, and I'm Colombian, it's just I'm in Texas, right? The little old Mexicanito Ivan can actually rise up, and now from pushing shopping carts at Kroger's for my first job to 10 years later, post my graduation, I'm pushing legislation in the United States Congress. And that gave me more tenacity and self-belief, especially understanding the supreme lack of representation of Latinos in the most diverse city in the United States, hence the world, that, hey, we need to lead by example, and we need to run for office, from city council to Congress, from the lowest positions to the highest positions. So as a 32-year-old, actually 30-year-old at the time, I ran for United States Congress in the richest district in the entire nation, where actually George H.W. Bush used to sit in, our former president, or former president, Bush daddy, used to be a congressman in that seat before he became president. Back then it was 90% Anglo. Now it's 65% minority. And I ran against the Goldman Sachs Golden Boys, the Harvard lawyers, and all this. And I was like, hey, I'm the only minority here. I'm the only one with congressional experience. I worked for the mayor. I done this. I done that. Unfortunately, I lost. But it's not over. Mm-hmm. People from Abraham Lincoln to Joe Biden to Barack Obama to all these people that you hear, they always lose their first ones. So it's not over for me. I can't just say what I'm about to do. But
remember Ivan Sanchez.
It is not the last time that I'll run for office. I'll just say that.
So what are some words that you want to say to our Que Onda audience?
Well, Mr. Esparza, a Que Onda, yo creo que esta magazine es un tesoro de nuestra comunidad, porque literalmente esta magazine está dando información that our mainstream media no muestra. Es nuestras raíces. Por eso es que se dice ¿qué onda? ¿Qué onda en nuestra comunidad? ¿Qué está pasando? Entonces, shout out to Mr. Esparza y la familia, la oficina, todos los staff members que están colocando blood, sweat and tears para sacar esta información. Porque cuando nuestra gente está más informada, vamos a ser más poderosos todos.
This has been Juliette Juarez with the Que Onda Magazine, reporting from Houston.